Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well done, well done. Listen, we're going to start this first song, and I just want you to picture yourself kind of in the Appalachian Mountains. Forested green everywhere, healing green everywhere, and there's one little hill. It's got a little clearing on the top of the hill, and on the top of the hill is a chapel. And we walk closer to the chapel, and we get closer, and we can hear some music. And then we hear singing. And as we get closer, we hear that people are singing. They've left everything behind. They left the cell phones and all the cynicisms and all the traffic and all that, and they're just there being in the present, being together, connected, being humbled by a song as we open the doors and sing this song. Please sing with me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to hear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come, till grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Here I'd like for us to sing together without the music. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no last days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Now let's have a pulse. Let's find our pulse again and see if we can come up with a beautiful song. We could play this forever. And it's called Forever. 1, 2, ready, go. Give thanks to the Lord, our God and King. His love endures forever. For he is good, he is above all things. His love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise. With a mighty hand and outstretched arm, his love endures forever. For the life that's been reborn, his love endures forever. Sing praise, sing praise, sing praise, sing praise forever.
Sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever. Sing praise, sing praise, sing praise, sing praise.
Oh, sing praise, sing praise, sing praise, sing praise. Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong, forever God is with us, forever. Let's
Forever God is faithful, forever God is strong,
forever God is with us, forever,
forever, forever.
Give yourself a hand. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
I'm going to move this just a little here. And good morning, everyone. So glad you are here with us today. Special good morning to those who are watching us via Facebook Live or YouTube Live. We're grateful to have you with us and to feel your presence with us through those electronic waves. Because after all, we're all energy. Everything is energy. So in that respect, there is no time, there's no distance between us all when we are in that energetic form of love. I'm grateful today as we wrap up this series on living untethered, and we're going to be looking at a few more practical ways that we can continue to move our heart to a greater and greater open state, because that is indeed where the kingdom lies. It is within us. It is within the heart that flows unimpeded with God's love. So join with me as we take just a moment to center ourselves and to open our own awareness and hearts right now to that presence of good flowing in and through us. We just allow that divine energy of love to be that free-flowing river moving through our bodies, refreshing our minds, enlivening and healing our hearts. God, it is with that energy of gratitude that we allow this moment to remind us that we never walk this journey alone. We know that that energy of love always accompanies us every step that we take. And we are grateful for this community of people who, when we forget that truth, are here to support us and love us and hold that sacred space until we can once again step back into the flow. For this and for all of the good in its many forms, moving in and through Center of Unity, we say thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
y'all couldn't hear me without this thing. So, I'm sharing. It's not on? I'm Sharon Crowder. I'm currently serving on the board of directors, and the unity principle of the day is we create our life experiences through our way of thinking, feeling, and acting. This is an empowering belief that also confers the responsibility for creating our own lives upon our own choices. Will we have happiness, peace, joy, abundance, and love? The choice is ours. The center of unity value today is service. It is in being of service that we can both develop ourselves spiritually as well as demonstrate our beliefs. The world is filled with endless opportunity and need to be of service, and in serving, we are endlessly blessed. The daily word is let go, let God. I bless myself when I let go and let God. If I find myself ruminating over a concern or a weighty decision, I release its grip on my attention by letting go and letting God. When I let go, I am placing my trust in divine mind, the source of infinite potential. I believe there are solutions and remedies of which my limited human mind simply cannot conceive. When I let God, I am trusting the grace of God will bless my life in the most wondrous and even surprising ways. Letting go and letting God is how I live my faith. I surrender to spiritual truth, the presence and power of God, and believe the best outcome is going to be so much better than anything I can imagine. I affirm, I let go and let God, and relax into knowing I am deeply loved and abundantly blessed. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. John 14:1.
Beautiful. Can you grab this? Stephen, can you grab this one for me? Thank you. So, living untethered happens when we are living a life of acceptance. And this journey to acceptance calls us to release any blockages that might be impeding that flow. We've been talking about this for several weeks now, about how we create through our personal mind preferences and experiences that we have times when we shut down our heart, which is in this author's view called a blockage, or we also create these when we cling to something that impedes the natural flow of love that moves in and through our hearts. It means that we have to be willing to be present with uncomfortable and sometimes even painful thoughts and feelings without resisting them. Not easy to do. It also means that we need to be willing to be present with those joy-filled, those loving thoughts and feelings that we have without clinging to them, to let them be fully enjoyed in the moment and let them follow their own natural rhythm. It starts with an understanding that there is a you in there. There is a you in each of us that is independent of our bodies, of our thoughts, of our emotions that we're having, of our beliefs. There is a you that is eternal, that lives and is a part of this journey. Those are transient experiences that we have, this body, these thoughts, these emotions of the eternal you that will always be, even when it's not having this earthly walk. These experiences that the you has within you, no matter how painful or how joyful, they will change, as all things do. We can never quite keep our world exactly as we want it to be because the nature of it innately is change. They will naturally pass through if we will simply allow them to. Living a life of acceptance also calls for an awareness that it's possible to override what he calls the personal mind. Some may call it the ego. Some may call it that part of us that in this human journey is really only concerned with the survival of the physical body. We have the possibility to have dominion over these experiences, these uncomfortable, painful things, and still be able to walk through them with a fully opened heart. Living a life of acceptance opens the door to the kingdom of heaven that is within you. You know, Jesus talked quite a bit about the kingdom of heaven. He often used parables to try and get people to understand what this kingdom of heaven experience was like, what the nature of it was in a way that they could identify with. Oftentimes, he used agricultural parables or moralistic parables to try and help people understand that. Many were about not clinging to those earthly possessions. In fact, he describes in a couple of different places the pearl of great price, that when it's found, they would sell everything in order to possess that, or a treasure in a field where once it's discovered, everything else is released in order to be able to experience, to have as a part of the experience this treasure. He says that the kingdom of heaven is like a net when it's thrown into the sea and catches all kinds of fish. And then he goes on to say, and then there is a sifting that happens, and those fish that are good, that can nourish us, are kept, and those that are not are released. This flow where we take what serves us and lets the rest go. He talks about the grain of a mustard seed, which is the smallest seed that we know of, that we can identify, and even this tiny little seed, when put in fertile soil, will grow larger than anything else in the garden. It will grow into a tree. The same is true for us, that the smallest of efforts that we are willing to do will bring us closer and closer to this heavenly state of being. This smallest effort can grow larger than any of the other weeds that hang out within us, any of those other things that tend to block our flow. If we just will plant that one fertile seed, it will begin to take root and blossom within us. So how do we get there? That was always my question when I first came to Unity. Well, how does that work? And what do I need to do? And how quickly can I move into that place? And now, 20-some years later, I'm still going, now how do we get there? And how quickly can I get there? It is a lifelong journey. But we want to begin to practice those things that help us override this personal mind, this default operating system within us. Some might call it the devil. The devil made me do it. Well, it might be those things that we've held on to in our subconscious mind are really that energy that's causing us to step outside of our flow. How can we begin to do practices that allow us to resist less, cling less? In other words, to simply just be with whatever's happening in our lives. I've shared a number of practices over the last couple of weeks to support us in this journey that allow us to, if we will put them into place every day in our lives, live in a greater way from that kingdom of heaven in our hearts. You might remember that first week, and this is a practice to just interrupt. When you're amping up, when the mind and heart are amping up, especially with fear, worry, is to plug our ears, close our eyes, and simply hum. And there's something about this vibration that interrupts those thoughts and feelings that give us a moment to recenter and begin to shift that from resisting and shutting down our heart. Another good interrupting practice is to shift your focus outside of your internal state and move into acts of kindness and service. You've heard this before, but boy, if you're feeling down and depressed about your life, go out and serve. It will shift that space within you eternally. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be a smile. It can be a kind word. It can be holding the door for someone. And that brings us back into a state where our heart is open, at least more than it was before we did that simple act of kindness. We can use a mantra, which is simply a phrase or a word, love or peace or God. When we find ourselves in that space where we feel our heart closing down, we can simply repeat that to ourselves and let that moment, rather than shut us down, move us through. Positive affirmations we've known, and that's been at the center of Unity since its inception almost 150 years ago. To use words to retrain the mind about what to think and feel in any given moment. We have to catch ourselves, but we can use those words. I'm showered with love, even if it feels like love is leaving us. I am showered with love, remembering there's love that's everywhere present. I might not be receiving it from that one that I had hoped would be one of my sources, but there's many other sources out there. And keep reminding myself that love flows through me. If we're worried about the state of the world or finances, to say that God always provides, God is present right in the midst of this, can help keep our heart from shutting down. I always love my grandmothers, and maybe you've been told this too, this too shall pass. Now, it's better to tell yourself that than to tell someone else, because if somebody else is in the middle of grieving, it's not always helpful. So you go, oh, don't worry about it, this too shall pass. But it's a great mantra to have for yourselves, to know that this is just a moment, and this moment will pass. It will change. That's the nature of life. That's the nature of the world. Instead of comparing this moment against what your preferences are or what that subconscious mind believes should be happening in order to feel safe. Remember that everything that's visible, everything that's been created, even those things that are uncomfortable and painful, is an outpouring of God's love. It's hard to see it sometimes in the moment, but if we can just remind ourselves that this too is God. I'm going to remind you of this next month when we're doing our prosperity series, but one of my favorites that I use a lot is this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me. And then you got to go, and I demand to see the blessing in it. But it's, it's like if we can begin, and you got to do it with the hip, you got to give God some attitude, like, I mean it. You better show it to me right now what my blessing is out of this. But it's true. If we look back on some of the most difficult things that we've walked through in our lives, many times we can say, it was because of that I was able to grow. I was able to step into. I was able to experience things that I never would have if that thing, which at the time felt horrible, had not unfolded in my life. Gratitude is one of the quickest ways that we can get our heart to open back up. Just to remember, not be focused on the one thing that isn't working, that is upsetting, but to remember all the good that is unfolding right now, is one of those tools that we can use that will help us keep our heart in a more open state. We talked last week about the low-hanging fruit. To let go of the things that we have no control over. How much time do we invest our energy in complaining about or wishing or talking about things that we have absolutely no control over, like the weather or the traffic or what somebody else is doing in front of us that we don't know and will never interact with? If we can begin to let some of those things go, then we have greater and greater opportunities to invest in the things that we are facing with a greater expression of love. We did a loving kindness meditation last week that helps us to practice the softening of our heart. If we can offer this energy of compassion, not just and gratitude and appreciation, not just for those things that we love, that make us feel good, but for ourselves and the negativity that we sometimes direct towards ourselves, and for those who might find those triggers and buttons within us and send us off into that state where we're wanting to close down. If we can begin to find a way, perhaps not to love it, but to at least be compassionate about what's happening and all the challenges in the midst for ourselves and others, it opens a doorway in which we can begin to let that blockage dissolve. Loving kindness is a great dissolver. I like to think of it that way. The more I can be in that energy, the more it can dissolve those things that seem to be not allowing my heart to be present with whatever's happening. So the last practice, and it's not one that's probably new to most of you, that we're going to include, and he doesn't talk about in the book, but I think it is one of the most critical ones, and it's certainly one of the core teachings of Jesus, and that is forgiveness. Loving kindness can be that initial softener. And maybe you start there with somebody that there's still a lot of pain and challenge to be able to say, I can forgive them. So maybe you start in that compassionate place, but eventually, to have it fully released, you move into this process of forgiveness. The dictionary defines forgiveness as being able to cease feeling resentment, anger, and blame against another or self for a past action. Jesus talked about forgiveness quite often, but he didn't really say how to do it. And it's interesting that part of that forgiveness process that we go through is often at a simmer level rather than those deep boiling level experience that we have, and what we feel is resentment. Anytime that thought comes up again, anytime something reminds us of that, and all resentment is a re-sentient of that past event. It is just re-experiencing something that's happened in the past. It's that state that comes up that is associated with that original event, not necessarily about what's going on now. All Jesus really told us about forgiveness is that we should do it. And how often should we do it? Who remembers? 70 times 7 or 70 times 70, however many sevens you want in there. And it just says you have to do it over and over and over again until it's complete. Not something I really wanted to hear when I was first started. It's like, I have to do it how often? You know, I've read books about forgiveness. I've attended workshops about forgiveness. I've practiced forgiveness. Every prosperity class that's ever been taught in this church, and I used to facilitate a lot of them. We used to do the 4T 3 times a year, so I did it 3 times a year as I facilitated it. Keys to the Kingdom, Absolute Abundance. There's a whole bevy of them out there, and they all have forgiveness as a component. And what I've discovered, and we were talking about this in our disciples session this past Wednesday, is all I know is that you have to get to a state of willingness. I don't know how it happens, but you have to get to a state where you're willing, where you're just say, I don't want this anymore, God. I'm going to release it to you. And it's not just a willingness in your head, because I've heard forgiveness and unity is to give understanding for. You know, so there is that process as we mature and we become adults, and we can understand perhaps why our parents or some other person in our young lives did something that was very painful for us. We might be able to give understanding now. We can understand, well, that perhaps was an experience that they had with their parents, or that was an experience that they had that led them to react that way or respond that way in their own lives. But that's not enough, I've discovered. Not just to understand it, but we have to be willing to let it go in our hearts. I'll tell you, probably my longest and most challenging journey of forgiveness has been with my older brother. My older brother, when I was young, was a bully. He was certainly emotionally and at times even physically abusive, at least to me, and I know to my younger brother too. It was a lifelong journey even when we got to be adults, and every class that I took that had a forgiveness practice, he was at the top. He was always, because what would happen is I'd go through the process and they say, oh, go in your heart, release. You know, I'd give understanding for it, worked with compassion for him, and then I'd go home and I'd interact with him again, and boy, there it was. Okay, well, no, I didn't quite get it fully that time, so I'd do the process again. And, you know, in my mind, I truly did want to let this go. I just, and some said it was like an onion peeling, but there came one time, and this happened in 2013. So I had been working on this now for about 13 years in my forgiveness practice with him. And I then kept getting reminded, oh, I'm not complete yet, because he could still trigger in me that painful memory, that inability to be with him and be in a space of joy. And in 2013, well, it was December of 2012, I flew home on Christmas Day because we were having the discussion with my father about moving him into hospice. He had had a series of strokes, and so the whole family was gathered round. We were all sitting in the den, and I said something, and my older brother lost it and started screaming at me. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He was being his normal self. I responded differently than I ever had to him, and I lost it. And I was screaming back. And everyone's sitting around this. My poor dad, we're contemplating, him go. And here's his sibling or his children having at it still in our 50s. And it opened this floodgate. And after we had this long, loud verbal altercation, I left the room. I went outside, and for the first time, I think ever, in that highly emotional state, said, I don't want this anymore. I mean, I'm crying. I don't want this anymore. And I think for me, it was the first time where at every level of my being, not just in my head, but every level of my being, I said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I said, I don't know how to let it go, God, but I'm giving it to you. I don't ever want to return to this state of being ever again. And I have to tell you, now we're in 2022, I have a totally different relationship with him. From that day forward, there is, at least to date, he has not found a trigger or button in me. He hasn't changed significantly, but our relationship has because I have. In fact, it was a year later in 2014 when Jessica and Eric were getting married, and the whole family came for it. And he started off with his normal. I mean, that's just the state he's in. And I could just feel this well of compassion and love for him. And instead of running, which was my typical, oh, there he goes, let me just leave as fast as I could. Instead, I put my arm around him. He was sitting next to me, and I started kissing on his cheek. And I'm like, oh, you're just so cute when you get so upset like that. What do? That was like, wait, that's not the way this goes. You do this, and then I do this, and then you do this. The whole dynamic. And I'm like, oh, take a picture of us. Isn't this cute, this brother and sister together? But it opened the door, and it's opened the door for him, and it's allowed him to be different with me in many ways, too. So when we forgive, we do this for ourselves. The other person may never change, but how we get to be with them will, when we truly let it go. So for those people who ask me, I said, I don't know how, but you got to be willing. I don't know how it happens. It's one of those mysterious things. I call it grace, that when you are willing, then somehow it has the opening to leave for good. And it's changed and allowed more love to flow through my life, not just even with him, but with all people, because I no longer have that blockage that shuts down my heart. I think this is a lifelong journey, this journey to discover what shuts us down and to be willing then to release it, to discover what causes us to cling in fear and then be willing to release it. And as you let go, we get pulled further and further into the flow of this thing that we call love, this flow that we call God, this part of us, this eternal part of us that in unity we would call our Christ essence. And others, they might just call it that spark of the divine. Doesn't matter what you call it, it's there within all of us. And the more we get in that flow, the less things have an opportunity to shut us down, to impede that flow in our lives. There was a mystic called Meher Baba from the East, and he describes this place of enlightenment, the thing that we would call heaven, like a drop of water that falls into the ocean. And when you try and find that drop, you can't, because it is merged with all there is. It is merged in that body of water. That's what that experience is like, even for that moment when we allow the fullness of the love in our heart to flow. Jesus said it a different way. He said, the Father and I are one. He was in the midst of that stream where there was no distinguishing between me and God, Jesus and God. They were one. And that's the truth. We just don't always get to experience that truth. Yogananda called it a river of joy flowing through you, flowing inside you. And your path is to go there, to get in and drown, to drown fully into this stream of living water. Like most things in life, this deeper spiritual practice takes time. I wish it was instant. I was hopeful it was when I first found unity, and I was like, oh, good, things I can do. Let's get this done. And since have discovered that it is a journey that typically will take a lifetime or more. But as you do this inner work, the energy begins to shift and flow. It becomes easier and easier the more we practice it. And the more we know that helps keep this love flowing is we're not alone. We're not alone beyond any human interaction. Even if all that went away, we would still be accompanied on this journey by the energy of love. And all who have walked before you, who are supporting you, who are cheering you on in this process. So let's take a moment and move into a time where we can maybe begin to open that willingness to forgive those things in our life as we move into a time of meditation. I just invite you right where you are to be comfortable. Perhaps you want to close your outer eyes just so you can focus inward and bring that focus of attention to your heart space. Just check in with it right now and see, does it feel open and flowing? Are there things that perhaps are impeding that flow? Some worry, some challenge. And as you breathe into this heart space, almost imagining your breath moving in and out of your heart, you can feel that circulation of love begin to expand, to push aside, at least for this moment, whatever blockages there might be, to move around it just like the water does and find a way to flow in and through that place where the love of God resides, that place deep within your heart. And into this chamber of love, I invite you to call into this sacred space someone or some past event that you're still challenged with and fully letting go. And we first extend our compassion to ourselves, to all the players who were a part of it, with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be happy. May all good things come to you. See if you can just say that silently a few times. And if you feel some resistance coming up, it's okay. Just allow it to be there as you continue in your mind's eye to extend to yourself and to all others this eternal and human longing to be well and happy, peaceful and loving. And even if you feel emotions rising up as this memory comes back into your mind and heart's awareness, see if you can't, with all of your being, say, I'm willing, I'm ready to let this go. I'm willing to not have it be a part of my emotional journey. I'm willing to let you, God, in your grace, heal and release this. spend a few moments and allow that stream of willingness to move in and through this situation. And as you begin to bring your attention back to this time and space, just know that this process may take several times of being in this willing state. And the most fertile time to be willing to let go is when you're in the middle of being triggered by it again. When it rises up in its full emotional state, just take a breath and say, I'm willing. I'm willing to forgive and let this go. I want to forgive and let this go. And allow God's love and grace to do the rest. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So the bottom line for living this life in this untethered state, in this free-flowing state, in this greater and greater expression and flow of God's love is to just keep letting go and keep letting go and keep letting go. To keep allowing your heart to move to a greater and greater open state. Because when you do, you will not only change your own life, but you will make a positive difference in the lives of others and in our world. And you will discover the kingdom of heaven, that kingdom of heaven that's within you, our spiritual and eternal home.
I found the place I long to be, safe in your arms. And everywhere I go, that's where you are. And everywhere I go, that's where I find you. And everywhere I go, that's where you are. You took all of my pieces and parts. You built the door to my heart, and you are home to me.
Yes. That's where we want to get. We want to get home. We want to be like Dorothy and just click our heels and be able to be home in that place of God, in that place of love. It is our opportunity now to share of our gifts and our tithes and our love offerings for this community. We are grateful for all of the ways that we receive our good. We continue to ask you to hold in your thoughts and prayers, and we're going to do some visioning work next week. So hold in your vision that we get the right parents and children coming through and being a part of our Hughes Road Montessori. And just know it's all unfolding in perfect divine order, even when we can't see it and even when we'd like it to be quicker. I like a little evidence out there. Faith is a good thing and it's a beautiful thing, but you know, it's nice to have a little manifestation going on here. So join with me as we take into our hands, into our hearts, the energy of or the gifts that we offer today and bless them together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. The ushers are going to be inviting you to come up row by row. You can just place your gift in the larger basket or add one of the cards that signify that you're part of the committed giving program, or just put your hand over it and add some energy and then receive an affirmation to bless you this week.
the talking stick.
Thank you. Um, my name's Kristen. This is a visitor welcome. If you're watching us for the first time, we're glad you have chosen us. We invite you to visit us, visit our website, and fill out the Connect card. And if you're local, we invite you to come in person. And if you're visiting us here for the first time, please fill out a Connect card. It's in the front pew, or you can fill it out at the front welcome desk and drop it in the back of the sanctuary. And our appreciation for today, once again, we appreciate all of our congregates. You volunteer, you give of your time, talents, and treasure, and you pitch in when needed. Without all of you, we wouldn't be as mighty as we are. You are the embodiment of love. So to all of us, to you, we love you, we bless you, we truly appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. Namaste.
Here's what's coming up at Center of Unity. Our nursery is growing and we need your help. It's just one Sunday a month. Please see Debbie after church for more info. We're excited to announce that beginning August 7th, 2 care team members will once again be in the prayer room after service for 15 minutes to support you in prayer. It's our 40th birthday and we're celebrating big. The banquet will be on Friday, October 14th at the church. Tickets are $35 each and available in the bookstore. There will be dinner, dancing, entertainment, a live auction, and much more. You don't want to miss this. We'll also need lots of help to make this special celebration a success, so please see Mary Salerno or sign up at the Info Center to help. First Sunday lunch is right around the corner, so plan to stay after church on Sunday, August 7th for a spaghetti lunch with salad and bread. Love offerings are welcome. We have a variety of online classes available each week. Visit centerofunity.org for more info. There are multiple ways you can make a donation to Center of Unity. You can drop your donation off at the church, mail it to our P.O. Box, visit our website, or use the COU or Venmo app. Your continued support is greatly appreciated.
We want to thank you for coming today. What a great service. Reverend Linda, you've done
We're
it
going to bring
again.
our kids in.
Well, I don't see them.
We don't have any kids?
I think
No, we
they-
have
I
some,
think
but
we
where
all
are
went
they?
Are they here?
Oh, maybe nobody went and got
Shall
our
we,
children today. Are they on the way? Oh, they're on the way.
On the way. Okay, good.
Well, let's start singing,
Well,
and
let's just
we'll
go ahead
sing
and
them in.
get it started here.
This little light.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. One more time, keep going. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Here they come.
One more time.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning. We were having too much fun making bracelets. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to let Sharon share what we did today.
Today we learned about the book of Psalms and that God protects us always. And we made bracelets and played in the water, basically.
Okay, everybody, this is the time when we all stand up in gratitude and sing our song of peace. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And so, as we go out to live this day with an open heart, letting the love of God flow through us in every moment, we go knowing our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.